You ready, Sven? You ready, Millie? Call this meeting of the New Shoreham Town Council to order. Today is Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. It is 6:32. Motion be in order to convene a closed session. Yes, you can. Excuse me, sorry, I'm frog in my throat. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We're now in closed session. Sven, do you want to start? Thank you. It's been a tradition, at least.
Mark's been driving that point.
My second question is, do we normally just count some more without licenses like other times to advertise?
Yeah, liquor's the one that has guidelines.
So that was key. He said to me, like we didn't call him.
What are you doing? I think that's kind of cause trouble.
Well, that was that's the thing about from located research, you gotta do circle order.
I'd like to call this meeting of the New Shoreham Town Council to order. We just had a brief closed session, and I would ask for a motion to seal the minutes.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes are sealed. Now, our first order of business is to convene the Board of License Commissioners. where we discuss and act on a new outdoor entertainment license for Block Island Pizza Pie LLC, doing business as Block Island Pizza Pie Company, 125 Corn Neck Road, Plat 6, Lot 134. So, Pat, is that you?
Yep, I'm here and Matt is there.
Excellent. Fantastic. So you want to walk us through your plan?
Matt can go ahead and take care of that.
Hi, Matt. I know. I know. Yeah.
Check, 1, 2.
Hey, Kat, given that Matt is here, I'm going to ask you to be an observer because we have taken a position and the rule and actually the state law says that you can't participate electronically. So it's nothing personal. But as long as we have Matt, we don't need Kat. Thank you.
We're just thinking, having like a 1 to 2 person acoustic. Sorry, Matt, is your green light on? Yes. Can you hear me? Hello? Yeah. All right. We're thinking about just like a 1 to 2 person acoustic outside, possibly. I don't really have any specific plans, but it's something that we might like to do. So I figured we'd just go for the license and go, but it wouldn't be anything big or bands or anything like that. Something real basic, close to the building.
Are there any questions from the council? Comments, thoughts?
Would
Yeah.
be my first time going through
Yeah.
the outdoor stuff, so do others submit a plan? I mean, how does it normally work? Are we expected to vote on this or, you know,
Yes. It's all good questions.
Okay.
I'm going to let Millie, because I will forget something, walk
Okay.
us through the process.
So there's a pretty comprehensive ordinance regarding outdoor entertainment, and the ordinance speaks to where on the property they can have the entertainment. Has to be within 25 feet of the building. Has to do with speakers being, turned into the property. It's pretty well specified and managed by the ordinance. So there really isn't much governance for you to do, except for to decide whether to approve the application based on what's in front of you. There's timing noted in the ordinance as well, hours, yes. Ending at 9 PM. I don't recall when it begins, whether it's noon or 11, but
It's noon, Millie.
okay, thank you.
And this application conforms with the rules as they exist. Sven?
Millie, just if one applies in that form, you apply for the type of music, if I remember correctly, or the whether it's amplified, non-amplified, or sort of small or big band.
Right, and that is included on the application in front
right.
of you. Although it's not delineated to the depth that you'd
5%
like
versus
to
6%,
hear. But
right,
yeah, it does. I think it does say 1 to 3 on the
Yeah.
application.
Small group. That's what I was actually getting at, is that I think you said it's going to be small and relatively calm versus raucous. So,
It's a small, I mean, it's.
Yeah, oh, no.
small space, so.
thank you.
Any questions before we open it up?
No, just how, I'm sorry, I got 1 to 3 piece, but 1 to 3 piece, what?
I would imagine there would be a guitar or 2, maybe somebody singing. I don't picture a big rock band or anything like that. It wouldn't be that.
Thank you.
Molly, any questions? Is there any comment from the public about this one? Nothing?
so the one comment I'd make is I was approached by Cindy Lasser I guess she presented last November about concerns in Bridgegate Square and the sound.
Mhm.
I directed her to the chief to talk about
Mhm.
that, more around enforcement. So this would just be one more area of outdoor entertainment. So just noted, I did talk to her about there's rules and there's decibel levels and all of that in place. And, you know, if it got to the point where decibels are not at the right levels, then that would be a police enforcement thing. So
Terrific. Yeah. My take on this is that it is already an area that has, you know, a fair bit of activity. So I don't have sort of feeling like we're introducing something that one would not expect. Or notice, frankly. I'm comfortable with it, particularly not having heard from any abutters about it. I would make a motion to approve the outdoor entertainment license for Block Island Pizza Pie Company doing business as Block Island Pizza Pie, 125 Corn Neck Road, Plat 6, Lot 134.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Matt, it better be good music.
Thank you. Yeah, you'll be judged on genre more than anything.
Exactly, that's right. Kirk Littlefield is going to be there. So on to the regular agenda. Is there any public comment tonight? Yes. Oh, adjourn the public hearing. Yeah. I make a motion to adjourn the Board of License Commissioners. Thank you, Millie.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. On to the town council agenda. Is there anybody,
Wait.
any,
Oh, sorry, I thought you were skipping over.
no.
public
Is there any public comment tonight?
I have
Nobody?
public comment.
You do? Fantastic. Look at us.
I just wanted to let everyone know that our Congressman Seth Magaziner will be here next Monday, May 8th at 12:15 in this room at Town Hall. He's having a public town hall for anyone who would like to come and ask him questions or talk to him. And Magaziner is our new congressman who replaced Langevin.
No other public comment? Moving on to our consent agenda, we have a number of minutes to approve, which all look fine to me. I did want to flag because while it's on the consent agenda, it does bear calling out that Marianne has worked very closely with DEM, and we're going to act on a memorandum of agreement that for the first time, I think, establishes over the long haul investment by DEM in maintenance at the Mohegan Bluffs. And I think it's just important to call it out, I think, as a real positive. So a motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda is adopted. Millie, we have to set a public hearing date for this proposed ordinance regarding public consumption of cannabis.
June 5th.
June 5th. Everybody okay with that? Sven, can you make a motion to just set that as the date for the hearing?
Yes. Cool. I just checked my schedule. Sure. I make a motion to.
It's all about you, Sven.
It is right now. I make a motion to set the public hearing date for the general ordinance regarding prohibited consumption of cannabis in public for June 5th at 7 o'clock at Town Hall.
Second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We'll hear that on the 5th.
Can I just ask a question on that?
Yes.
So I'm assuming there's already a state statute on this. Is it
Nick-
because it's not clear enough?
Nick,
Why are we
you
doing
did, you did research on this, so.
Sure. So this is all Neil, new law as of last year. In the law, they leave it to cities and towns to govern the public consumption of cannabis. So that's why we have to step in should you decide to pass this draft ordinance.
Let's see, item 6, Chris Blaine. Is Chris here? All right. Okay, well, we'll,
Just table it.
I mean, for those of you who are interested in this deer hunting issue, just by way of background, Chris Blaine, who's an active island hunter, requested to be on the agenda to consider the 2 items that are on clerk base. Closing the shotgun deer hunting at the National Wildlife Refuge and suspending the Black Rock Lottery hunt. And you can read that request. Just go to clerk base. I think it's important to refresh people's memories since I need it pretty frequently. We had a meeting about a month ago-ish with the DEM deer folks, and it was a council work session actually. And one of the items for action is a group of us going up to meet with DEM, which we're in the process of coordinating and scheduling, since at least one of these items involves conversation with DEM. Yeah. So anyway, tell Chris, assuming his request still stands, we will, as we usually try to do, accommodate members of the public who want to discuss something in detail. Next up is to discuss and act on a request from Verizon Wireless. I'm comfortable doing whatever. Yeah, I'm comfortable just skipping over it and speaking with Chris and telling him, you know. Next is to discuss and act. Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. Sorry about that.
The dates are already set for next year.
Yes, yeah. Discuss and act on a request from Verizon Wireless for lease of a portion of land at the transfer station for a wireless telecommunications facility. Marianne, you want to take this one?
Yes, so we received a letter from Verizon asking if they could possibly explore the possibility of putting a wireless telecommunication at the landfill property. Attached to, and what I plan to do with this evening was just get a consensus from the council as to whether or not they'd be interested before time spent, staff time, looking into it and chatting with these folks and seeing what exactly they want. Millie was kind enough to pull the deed for that property.
Thank you.
And number 6 leads me to believe that we can't allow such thing on the property because it specifically says no structure of any kind shall be erected or permitted thereon except Fenton's and caretaker's building. So I'll be happy to communicate that with the folks from Verizon to let them know.
That I can't respond to that. Okay, I know there's more than one. Is this one from Jack? Is it one from Jack? Because we purchased, he gave property, we also purchased property. And that I don't. But there may be something here.
So I had, given that we don't have anybody from Certex or Crocker or Amy here, one of the questions I have is what's going to be the impact of broadband and the widespread availability of Wi-Fi calling? Does it obviate the need for expanded number of towers. I just think it was a question I had. And not something that the Verizon subcontractor can answer, but I think it's, if we're going to be thinking about this, I think having a better sense of the extent to which having widespread availability of high-speed internet has an impact on it. The other is, I guess, not necessarily a flip side, but honestly, when I drive around with my cell phone, the south side is a much bigger problem than the next to me. Just like, and to me, the south side is the one that makes me worry because there's a public safety concern down there. So if I were talking to Verizon, I might ask sort of what their long-term plan is, and whether there's a willingness to work with our public safety infrastructure here to talk about what potential solutions are that could have a positive impact on our ability to communicate with public safety, but also perhaps add capacity and reliability to their system. I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. Any other thoughts on this one?
The only other thought while we had that conversation is seeing if they can remove the poles that are all over the island that don't have wires on them anymore, but are still, I used to have the telephone wire, but they haven't been moved over to the new pole.
Oh, really?
Oh, a lot. And it's Verizon has to move it from the old pole to the new pole, which is a foot away. And the power company can't do that. So one may want to have a discussion as to completing the work that one would have thought would be done.
I guess the other question would be, are they looking to us only because, are they looking to other people for hours? I don't know, or this only come to us because we own the land?
Yeah, it's come to us because we own the land.
Maybe the other company.
They may be.
Let's find out.
I can ask them, yeah.
But it's just one of those opportunities, it seems to me, to sort of talk to someone who's actually working on this stuff about the public safety need here, as well as their undoubtedly very compelling commercial needs.
So I would, to Martha's point a little bit, I'd love, Marianne, if you talk to them, they could explain why they're doing this. They say it's because the north end has little coverage. To Keith's point, I don't get that, but maybe you can understand, they can explain why this is being developed now.
Yes, David. It's good to see you.
Glad to be
It's
here.
almost like it's not the third time I've seen you today.
Well, so here we are.
Third time's the charm.
David Lewis, Coonamus Road. So it isn't missed from the record, we've talked about the north end and the south side. I presume the west side should be considered for improved cellular communications as well. So let's just not leave that outside the conversation if we have the opportunity to encourage them to do good things. Thank you.
That was my intent. The letter does say, looking at, it didn't sound necessarily like it was just done, but I want to be sure.
And it's a good point, David. I did not mean to be geographically insensitive, but
But we all know the north end
we all-
is the
we all
most
know
important
that
part of the island.
there's a exactly there's a
Let's be clear about that.
Well, some people in the center of the island sometimes think the south side covers everything below you.
Okay.
I occasionally fall victim to that, I must admit. Thank you, David. Goodness. Are there any other comments about this? It's actually, we talk a lot about our broadband infrastructure, but this is an essential part of the communication system, particularly, as I say, on the public safety side. So paying attention to it is, I think, quite important. Any other comments? Chief, were you getting up to speak? Okay, good. Just checking. Item number 8, discuss and act on medical center request for a letter of consent for the medical center construction project as the landlord of the property. B, amend the medical center lease to include health resources and service administration, HRSA requirements. I always wondered what HRSA stood for, and now I know.
What is it stand for?
Health Resources and Service Administration. Go ahead, Mary Ann. Thank you.
So what's before you this evening is, as most of you know, I'm sure you all know, that the medical center was awarded a congressional appropriation of $2 million early this fall. And like with any kind of federal funds, there are certain conditions that they require to receive the funding and proceed with the necessary renovation and construction that the medical center plans to do in the next 12 to 24 months. The first one is that we have to amend the lease to extend the period of the lease. So what you have is, I work closely with Nick Solitro on this, on town solicitor. If you look at item number 2 under Second Amendment of lease, it says the Block Island Health Service shall have properties with all rights, privileges, et cetera, for a term of 9 years, which starts back in January 1st, 2021 and ending in December 31st, 2029. So that's the extension. The other item that they do require is that a letter of consent for the medical center from the owner of the property. And that was also provided to you this evening. The one thing in particular I want to point out in this letter, and we've been down this road, so to speak, just recently with the RIPTA of vehicles, is that the town of New Shore acknowledged that there will be a federal interest in the property as a result of the proposed improvements. And town of New Shore agrees to file the notice of federal interest prior to commencement work, if required by HRSA. It's my understanding that's for 5 years. And if you remember correctly, the particular vehicles we got with RIPTA with the federal matching funds also required a 5-year lien on the vehicle. And then after that, the lien will be released. So you have the same thing before you this evening. The medical center has asked that the council approve this. They need to file this information with HRSA
Health Resources and Services.
sometime before the 1st of June. So they're looking to have this approved by the council this evening.
I just want to say how excited I am that the lobbyists were able to work with the medical center and get that federal appropriation. It's pretty amazing. And I'm very positive about this.
Do you need them as separate motions, or can we just do both?
Since that listed separately, I would suggest
Okay.
separately.
I would make a motion to approve the letter of consent for the medical center construction project as the landlord of the property. Second. Any comments, questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I would make a motion to amend the medical center lease to include HRSA requirements.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's done. Oh, I will. Yeah, Martha just pointed out, just in case anybody's wondering, my wife is the chair of the medical center board. We have no pecuniary interest in it, but out of an abundance of caution, I went to the ethics commission when I was first elected, actually, and went through in great detail what her role was, what my role was. I'm perfectly, and I didn't just get an advisory, I actually asked for a formal opinion, which was voted on by the ethics commission. As I say, I'm happy to share that or give you the web address. Basically, we have no pecuniary interest. The issue that they asked basically said, there's nothing about this that violates the state law, but you have to be careful if Susan, my wife's name is Susan, if Susan appears and is asking for something. So I just want to make that clear that it's not like I'm ignoring it. Bill.
You said that they get $2 million?
Yes.
So is that just recent?
Yes. Relatively. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Yeah, we announced it. Yeah, but it's. Yeah.
Well, the rural thing was pretty big too.
Yeah, it's a really big deal. And I have to say, you give credit to all of the federal delegation, but I can tell you, I think Jack Reed really went to the mat for the island. And, it's so incredible, with both the senators. I don't know Representative Congressman Magaziner, but, the extent to which though Senator Whitehouse and Senator Reed know and care about Block Island it's astounding to me. We are beyond lucky. It's just fabulous.
That's a lot of money. We've gotten money from a rival foundation.
Yep.
We also go out, but that's-
Yeah, yeah, it's extraordinary. And we're gonna, I have been, and I think Marianne has been working on figuring out a way to do some sort of an event to celebrate Reed at the medical center when that time is appropriate, whether it's groundbreaking or, something like that. Because I think it's not just about Reed, it's about, the community's commitment to the facility, which has been extraordinary. Discuss and act on recommendations from the Harbors Committee. Kate? How are you, Kate? Good. I think we've all read these suggestions from Harbors. If you just sort of go over them so
Okay.
everybody's
So
on the
the
same page.
first item A, defining live-on boards, that was not our intention to modify that. It's already in the ordinances, which I can read to you, states.
So we don't need to act on A
No.
that already exists. Okay.
A liveaboard is defined as persons intending to sleep on board a vessel for more than 3 consecutive days or more than 6 days in any given month shall be considered to have lived on board a vessel.
Okay.
I have no intention of modifying that.
Okay.
What I would like to see, we can move on to B,
Mhm.
is unfortunately, we don't have water or pump out service in Old Harbor from mid-November until May, just a couple of days ago. I think it's unsanitary and unfortunately, it's a commercial dock. I want to see more fishing down there than people just storing their boat or having cheaper housing.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to take housing away from anyone, but I don't think that that is the purpose. And I find it unsanitary to not have pump out there.
Gotcha. I just had a question about how you draw the line, how or why you draw a line between Old Harbor and New Harbor for these purposes, or is this already prohibited in New Harbor?
Somebody wants to live on their boat in Old Harbor, it would be the same. There are no services. The marina is shut down. So again, there's no fresh water for them unless they have, if they can show that they have a type of toilet on board, an incinerator or something like that, and they bring their own fresh water out. It's a struggle, but they could do it. We didn't have anything this year. So if you wanted to include New Harbor in that, I wouldn't have a problem, but I also can't regulate what happens on private property.
Right, yes. So would that require an ordinance change?
I think it could just be a policy for Old Harbor, and I think I discussed this with Marianne about that.
Policy? Great.
Because currently the harbor management has a policy relating to Old Harbor when you can use it and things like that. So this will
Gotcha.
just dovetail into that.
Okay.
So can I just clarify? So you said on private property, so if someone's at a dock and they don't have pump out services, they can just dump at the
No.
dock?
No.
Oh.
Not allowed to discharge.
Oh, okay.
No, but that would be, I think that would be up to the private property to provide that service off-season. We provide a service and it's designated again in the harbor management plan.
Great.
So the larger marinas close down because of insurance purposes, so they don't allow anyone on their docks.
Yeah, please.
Kate, I just want to make sure I heard what you just said. So is liveaboard, did you say 3 days?
It is 3 days. That's what it's stated in the harbor management plan or town ordinances. I would find it to be an individual in the waters of Block Island for more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, 3 days, we all know, you know, especially New Harbor and Old Harbor, a lot of people are here for 3 days.
So the Harbors Committee, I believe, requested it to be a 2-week.
Right, which is sort of back to that point one. So are you suggesting we change it to 2 weeks, or are you suggesting we leave it at the 3 days?
I suggest we leave it at the 3 days at this time
Fine.
and move on.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just making sure.
You want to review C with us?
C, I want everyone to take responsibility for their property out there, and I want everyone to be safe. This is not only for liveaboards, I would also like to see any vessel, whether it's on a mooring or an anchor. And if that breaks free and hits somebody else, then who's responsible? We've had, since my appointment, I have had 5 in the past 3 years go ashore, and only 1 has had the proper insurance
Right.
or proper removal.
And then we end up holding the bag, right?
And not just it wasn't just liability, that's what I was requesting from everyone, but the Harbors Committee had a great conversation about, well, hull insurance and environmental insurance. They go aground and
Oil.
there's oil or gasoline, who has to clean that up?
Right.
And just as a, like, how do you check that people have that kind of insurance? Like, just like
I
a,
would say I would physically need a copy of your registration and your insurance policy.
okay,
Those that were hauled out in the fall were given notice a couple of weeks ago that this was coming on board, and that I requested that they make a steady move to get at least the minimum of liability if they didn't already have that. Now, you have families living out there on their homes. This is their home for the
Yeah.
summer. You
Right.
would think that they would want that security.
Right.
Again, I'm not trying to make it expensive for
Nope.
people to live out there, but
Can I ask just one, well, I'm sorry to go back to B, but I'm still on this Old Harbor, New Harbor thing. If part of the rationale for prohibiting off-season liveaboards is an environmental rationale because of the lack of pump out action,
It- so
I-
we're gonna need to have
one
a
sec,
bit of
we're
mic.
gonna, we'll definitely get to that. But if it's, to finish my question, if it's an largely environmental concern, it seems to me, right? I mean, essentially it's,
so we have 9 commercial slips in Old Harbor.
so I'm talking about, I'm thinking New Harbor.
Okay,
I'm wondering if we, in other words,
so
do
there's
we
no,
need to do
there's no
both is-
public
is what-
dock
is what I'm
in
asking.
New Harbor that a vessel can tie up to. So if they want to stay in New Harbor, they have to come to private property and Robbie Brown can pump them out.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kate, back to a little bit on the 3 days versus 2 weeks. Because here we're requiring for for liveaboards, and I agree with this a lot, to have the insurance, for long stays, which in theory would be 3 days by the ordinance. I'm just trying to make sure that is consistent for,
Then if you want to make a.
you see what I'm
if you wanna
saying?
make An ordinance policy, if you want to make an ordinance change, then I would suggest that it is a little longer.
Yeah.
You know, we have people that come for a week. Do we want every boat in the harbor to be required to show insurance? That's up to you.
No, and that's where I'm getting to. So in this, it's sort of like all live on boards in the waters of town of Shoreham will have the insurance. The way we've defined live on boards is 3 days by the ordinance. So are we,
And I wouldn't, that's from the Harbors Committee. I wouldn't just leave it as liveaboards. You have other vessels out there that are on their moorings.
for a long time?
Or people leave on anchor. And
They go
I
home for a
would
week.
say a vessel in the waters of Block Island for more than 2 weeks should be able to show at minimum liability.
So do you know what a marina requires? Do they require all those coverages?
I would think that Champlin's does. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, because it just, if you go to everyone, it becomes a pretty big administrative task. Is there any sort of online systems that doesn't have you? I mean, imagine if you had to go to every boat and check
We have
all the
a
insurance.
person now that they could register with the department and they could upload their
Oh.
registration and insurance.
And presumably you want a tool that, so that you can say, listen, you meet the definition of a liveaboard. I
Yes.
need to see your, I
Yeah.
need to see your documentation. Right. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, which to Kate's point, during the summer at least, will be a majority of boats.
Right.
Which is saying
Which I
everybody
know.
has insurance. Oh, well, everybody has insurance.
So-
I drive by them all the time.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, I'm reinforcing your point that basically we're gonna have a well-insured,
But-
for environmental.
So there's two things happening here, or potentially happening. One is a discussion about a change in the ordinance, which has its own process. And then the B and C are policy changes. Just making sure I understand this correctly. So if it's the consensus of this group that we should look at the 3-day thing, that'll be you know, it's fine with me. I'll look at anything, but we would have to go through the process of getting it drafted, scheduling it for public hearing, et cetera, et cetera.
Since I'm the one who brought it up, it's not my preference to change that. And I'm now with
Okay.
Kate. What we are in essence doing then is saying, if you're going to be here for over 3 days, you need to have insurance. I mean, that's ostensibly what we're saying by B and C, which I support.
Any other thoughts? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Does the state require,
I was having the same,
They don't, I thought they required insurance when you register your boat. That shows you how long it's been since we had our sailboat.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I had our sailboat, we had to, so they may have changed.
why don't you come on up and we'll.
Yeah, everybody's got to use a
so-
mic, please.
One over there as well.
Just come up, say your name, et cetera, et
Joe
cetera.
Valancourt.
How are you, Joel?
Hi. Yeah, I live on my boat till like December because my 3 kids go to school here. And it's not the lack of money, it's the lack of can't find housing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what I mean, I can pay whatever, but if you can't find something, I am forced to live on my boat because I run a business out here with my father,
Yeah.
which, you know, I do all the town work, roofing patches and stuff. But when I need my boat, you know, what I mean, I can go have Robbie come or Brown come pump my stuff out, water I can bring down on a dolly and fill my boat. And then take my trash to the dump like everybody else does. But when I find housing, then I move off my boat. I have my boat hauled and put back in the summer. And I have insurance which covers like 40 grand if it hits somebody, or it hits a dock, or if it goes up on the beach, gets pulled off, it's only $148 a year.
Mhm.
Because that's when you haul your boat out, they require that.
So your,
So I'm
your
doing everything
problem
I'm
is,
supposed to, but like if I need to pull up to like December with my kids, then I'm not gonna be able to, which that's what I'm hearing. Cause everybody does what you're supposed to, you don't pollute, you should be fine. And it's a boating community, am I wrong?
are you in Old or New Harbor?
Well, in the summer, I'm in New Harbor, and then in the wintertime, if I can't find housing, I'm forced to come to Old Harbor, and I'll wrap up, 'cause I know the facilities, I can pull in the back there, or all over town.
So he's,
Yes.
I'm gonna interrupt you. He's on private property, so I'm talking about the
But if I
commercial
didn't have
dock,
that, I could go over there if I needed.
but I'm talking about the commercial dock. We
Right.
don't have proper water, we don't have.
Right. Gotcha.
Pump.
Yep, I understand.
Can I say something?
Of course, John, come on up.
Can I get the B, is right here, my glasses.
Sure.
How does the B read out about the waters? Is it Old Harbor Dock or is it Old Harbor?
Harper's committee held a meeting. Kate, do you want to answer that while I'm going through this?
The waters of Old Harbor.
Waters of Old Harbor.
But wouldn't that,
So that would include the whole basin, not just the inner basin, but the outside, which is a harbor of refuge. And if a boat comes in, they can moor out there and stay as long as they want, as far as I know. So there's that harbor of refuge thing there. If it was just the dock you're talking about, putting restriction on for sewage and water, there wouldn't be anything to get porta potty and to put a standpipe in. That's what we originally wanted, a standpipe, which gives you water all winter. It doesn't freeze like the farmer's standpipe, you open it up. And so that wouldn't be much at all to add, and that would solve the sewage and water problem. As far as a lot of people wanting to do this, I mean, it's kind of a torture to live on a boat in Old Harbor all winter. I mean, I know a couple guys that did it, and it's been done, and it does give us eyes on the harbor. My boat's down there, I'm not down there all the time, but there's a pair of eyes down there. If they see smoke coming out or water pumping out of something, that's fine with me. If it was a whole harbor full of liveaboard, that would be a whole different thing. So if there's, as far as I know, there's just one down there now, living aboard. I mean, that's not a problem, and that can be solved with porta potty, standpipe. Yeah, and they make portable, and they make buildings now, porta potty buildings. They've got two heads, and they're all pretty, it would be a small investment, but there's more people that are looking for housing. If you fall on hard times, you might want to do something like that. And, for somebody who wants to stretch the season, he wants to stay in December. I mean, you can't, I don't think you should, cut somebody out like that.
so if you want to add to the conversation, you do need to come up and use the microphone. So Kate, I have a question for you. By what you're asking for here, that would not eliminate somebody being able to dock on the private dock in Old Harbor, right? Or I just want to clarify that.
So yes, there was only one this year. That dock is intended for commercial use. So these boats that are going in and that are being stored there are getting a decent winter rate by utilizing a slip that the applicant has pulled their boat out. So they're utilizing it in the off-season by storing their boat, which should be a fishing vessel. Does this have to do, if you guys want to put a porta potty down there, again, I think that that's unsanitary because you're going to have the whole public down there utilizing it. And then the town has to pay to have that cleared and cleaned, and where is it going to be? So there can be extenuating circumstances. Again, the Valancourts are on private property. If they want to make some arrangement stating that they're going to be down there and this is how they're going to clear their boat out, or this is how they're going to get fresh water, then let's work on that. But that's an extenuating circumstances over a general.
Does the policy enable you to have flexibility in those
I
circumstances?
would hope that you would give me that.
But B, as we're looking at it, refers to
I didn't shut the water off until middle of November.
right, but so this applies to town-owned docks and facilities, right? So not privately owned. Is that, I guess, that's what I'm trying to get to.
We can't regulate.
Right. So a boat could be in Old Harbor on a private dock, is what I'm asking.
Sure.
This.
The way it reads.
The
is
way
like
it
waters
reads,
Of,
yes,
of Block Island.
Old Harbor. So the question would be, instead of live on boards in the waters of Old Harbor, we could do live on boards on town docks and. I'm trying to think about a way to do it. So, basically be specific to our town properties.
Well,
Is a way.
I think your
But
point.
what came up is the fact that the vessel that is on the commercial dock pumped out almost weekly during the summer. So I have an individual living on that boat. Where did they pump out? What type of what type of bathroom do they have? Do they have one of those incinerator toilets? Something like that. And this is all brand new. This is one of the first times I think someone's lived in Old Harbor since John probably remembers.
Just two things here. One is, I give great deference to what the Harbors Committee has decided. I know that you guys vetted this out, and frankly, I give a lot of deference to what you're telling us, Kate. So.
I don't want it to
but
become a habit or a problem in the future.
But here's the other challenge that the one of the issues that I have, and I maybe this is just me. Actual language to approve would be helpful, because I don't see that. And that's why I was asking the question. For example, do you have flexibility? Do you have
Yeah.
whatever?
So is that not something that you can work on?
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to work on it. I'm not saying I don't want to work on it. I'm saying we don't have that in front of us tonight. Are you looking for us to? What language would we be approving, I guess? I'm in. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but.
So if you look at this, it talks about from November 1st to May 1st that the languages. So we have some time here.
Where is the language?
I don't.
Am I not seeing it on Clerk Bay?
It's just the recommendation.
Right.
So why don't I take this back and I'll work with Kate and draft something up a little more formal for you and some language.
I'm happy to do it at our next meeting.
Yeah,
but-
and that's what I was just going to say, get it back to you folks. I'll have Nick take a quick look at it. And if we need to bring it back to the hub, if Kate feels that she would like to bring it back to the hub commission, I'll be more than glad to go to that meeting.
I don't even think you need to do that, but we need something that we're going to act on.
Yeah.
And
So-
something-
I think something Kate just mentioned is important to include, which is if you have a boat that's being pumped out once a week while we have a pump out boat all season, perhaps proof of pump out every week
Well,
off
that's what I'm saying.
season.
Let us work.
Yeah.
let
Is
us-
necessary.
I
I mean-
Kate and I've heard what the council has asked, and I think we got some good feedback to kind of expand on what's before you this evening.
Wonderful.
One clarification, this came up, sorry.
This came up earlier. When they say the waters of Old Harbor, is this specifically the waters of the inner basin of the old, what we call the inner basin of the Old Harbor?
Isn't that part of the discussion that you guys want clarity on?
Yeah, and that's what you were talking about to begin. Is that what you were talking about to begin with? It sounds like it. That's just what I was
So-
asking.
So let me work with Kate and we'll go from here. I think I got the feedback that I needed as where I think the council's going with this.
Great.
We got it.
Thank you, Kate.
If you use the Army Corps maps, they call the inner basin one thing and we call it something else.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So this will be, come on up, Catherine.
Been a while.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, right. I just want to kind of reiterate. Housing crisis. You know,
Well,
some of us have found a solution that just works a little bit. And maybe the town should go for like putting water down there and springing for a pump out cart that we can all pay to have Robbie Brown come pump out, like if we have to. Because the season goes longer and longer every year. We can't get into housing early.
mhm.
We have, we get kicked out early. We can't get in until late.
Yep.
We're on the boat. I'm on the boat for 6 months
Mhm.
straight. And if I lose my housing, my winter housing for whatever reason, the boat's gonna be my only option. And there's nowhere in New Harbor that's safe to keep a boat. That Old Harbor dock is a safe place to keep a boat, and water, a little pump out cart, and electricity is all we need. We bring our own housing.
I think it's a,
And instead of spending $2 million, you could spend $2,000
Mhm.
and help out a handful of people that are able to make that work.
Yeah, I don't get kick a hornet's nest here, but aren't we supposed to have a pump out cart in the Old Harbor?
Not in the off season.
This is from the original sewer approval back in the 70s. Okay.
mhm.
Letter is signed by Herb Whitman. It's in the EPA
This has been
Um,
very helpful.
impact statement.
All right, so we'll wait for our next meeting. Thank you guys for coming. It was very helpful to hear. Thank you, Kate. Discuss and act on parking ordinance / regulations. Mr. Murphy. Mary,
So-
Ms. Crawford.
As you stated in the last meeting, you said, Marianne, can you go back and see if you can come back with something?
Yes. Yeah, that was me. Sorry.
Yeah, so let me go through what I've done with the document.
Excuse me one second, Mary Ann. I want to make sure that Martha is on the same page with us.
It wasn't in the package, you know.
Certainly, it's in the paperless packet.
Okay.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. Yeah, 'cause I gave mine to mom. But if there's. No, no, you can take that. Just make sure whatever I have written on my notes, I say.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Terrific. Mary Ann, press on.
They won't touch the same. So what I heard from the council was to take back specific ordinance, and what I'm coming back to you with this evening is ordinance and some of the state traffic commission approved stuff, which needed some minor language change, and most of the changes to the state traffic commission was in fact they had the wrong road names. They're pretty simple. So what's before you this evening is information here that I think, it's of my opinion, is ready for the solicitor to take it, put it in ordinance form, and bring it back to you folks at the
Great.
council meeting on May 15th, so that you can set a date for a public hearing. So what I'll go through each individual page and explain the change. What I've done is in the left-hand column is the original language, and I put the cross out where the language in the right-hand column is the proposed new language. In some cases, I did not have to do that. I can just go through the cross out.
May I just say, I'm okay if you don't do that, since we're gonna be drafting. I think you have our sense that
Yeah.
please press on with Nick. If
Okay.
we have problems, we're gonna go through, I don't see a reason to go through it a third time.
Okay,
You know,
so
if that,
there's-
if that makes sense.
So there's one thing that is not in the documents I provided to you is, one of the things I forgot to include is, what we'll include in the ordinance is the fine of $50 now.
Okay,
upfront when it
great.
was there.
Yep.
And the third item is something that Nick came up with this evening, but after I had the opportunity to speak with him, and that is that we think it's at the same time at this point, we should address Old Harbor and the dock area as relates to parking, probably also before the summer begins.
Okay.
So I think what we'll do is we'll work with, if that's okay with the council, we'll work with Nick or James, and we'll get this ready in ordinance form so that you can
Great.
move forward with
Bill?
advertisement at the next meeting.
Bill?
On the old tickets, and this is, I don't have any objection to raising the cost of the tickets, whatever. But we used to have the tickets going back, there were different rates on some, for like the handicap was say 50 and the other was 10 and so forth.
Thank
And, 50, that's pretty steep. It's almost 15 minutes over the time limit. You really want to go to the 50. So,
Hold on one second, Bill. I want to hear what Bill has to say here. Go ahead.
yeah, so the tickets that we used to have, there were different fines, most of them, let's say most of them were all, whatever, it might be say $20. But there was like the handicap was say 50 or 75, or there were certain ones, a fire lane and so forth, a little more. I was just thinking, it might be worth looking at, if someone's 15 minutes over, maybe 50 might be high, maybe not, okay? But a fire zone or a handicap zone or something. So you might want to just kind of consider that a little bit for those things that are really egregious, like I said, a fire zone, handicap and so forth.
Mhm.
At one time that I don't know if they still did, but they had a different. Just a thought.
Great. Yeah, I know we raised we
Yes,
talked about
handicap is
handicap last
75.
time, but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
The sheet I just handed out, they go all the way down.
I hear you.
So this just lays out to organize the parking down there. So I just did a little grid so we could see it, work with this to make sure we're maximizing the spaces, that no overlap with any of the questionable land down there. But it does create two dedicated spots for H-Team. It keeps the handicap spot, and then it does request to document two current taxi parking spots that are not anywhere. So we want to have that. And then our strong request would be that the Harvard building put out the $100 fine for parking in the charter parking lot. So it would be, if we want to enforce that, we put it in that. So we squeaked in an extra spot there, and then there was a request from the voters down there to have two 15-minute spots, so people could come in, grab stuff off the dock, do quick unloading, that sort of thing. So it came to put. So that was that item. In theory, there's a option. Pickup options, lockers, whatever.
Can I ask a question about where you have it marked Ballards? So my understanding is that Ballard's property ends at their porch, right? Is that correct, or?
It looks on the map that it goes right to the end of the dock, but I just, it's less important about that. I just put it there for people to have a point of reference.
Oh, so that's not parking. Those aren't parking spaces. Got it, got it. I thought they were parking spaces. Okay.
John, come on up, please.
From what I've seen, the state owns into Ballard's porch, about halfway into Ballard's porch. So the parking spots out in front of Ballard's on state property. And a couple of things on this. This is good. It's a good start. It says all charter. And there's some of us that are commercial. fishers.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point, John. Right.
It's, yeah, the sign say both, but, on the 10-15 minute parking, it would help, I think, if they were behind the harbor master building towards the harbor's department parking spot. Those are just single, there's two spots there, they're small. The first one's for a small car and the next one's for a little bit larger car, but you can't, the road is right behind those two parking spots. That would be good for 10 or 15 minutes. You can put the sign right on the building. There's nowhere to put signs on the dock where you have those spots now. Keep those spots where it says 10-15 minute parking for commercial fishermen. All the spots behind the harbor's building, the rest of the spots behind the harbor's building, 3 or 4 of them, you can double park. So you can put 2 charter guys, one behind each other. Really, we don't leave the keys in the car. But
It's a good
we
policy.
all know that. That would be my only comment.
So you're saying, just so I understand it, John, you're suggesting that the 2 spots that say 15-minute, those become commercial and
Move those
flip
behind.
and move those. Will you just walk me through it again? Sorry.
Take those 2 15-minute spots.
Yeah.
Move them behind the harbor's building. All the
Okay,
way to the right.
gotcha.
Those are the 2 smallest parking spots. Nobody can really park behind somebody there, so where you have them now, somebody could pull up and block somebody in.
Gotcha. That's very helpful.
It's more like a V, not a straight line.
Yeah.
Triangle.
And yeah,
That's not good.
and where it says no parking, we kind of figured that we could parallel park there. And, Chief Moynihan, when we went through this with him, he said, yeah, I don't see any problem with that. We can get 2 spots there.
Will you work with the chief on that? That's,
So
that seems to me to be,
there was a lot of discussion that it gets too crowded down there and the risk to have parking spots there. Yeah.
People do park there, and, yeah, I mean, you could actually make the spots, but, and like I said, Bowers, if you look on the plat maps, and it owns right into their porch and right up to the front of the building. So.
great. Thank you.
So then Mary Ann, I did run through just the other things we should just do for today is the handicap spots are good at anywhere. And then the weakness, pulling it 2-hour park. It's kind of key.
That's very
So,
important.
we did need
Man, are you
signs.
being picky tonight?
Details.
But what are So, that's the water and sewer board, and they are interested in pursuing the conversation around the lot.
They are.
They are.
Who is?
the water and sewer.
Oh, great.
We told them it's not a this year thing, but for next year. And they're in agreement, Phillips is in agreement to move the parking to the front end of the town would get, so you're not having to actually the whole lot. They suggested I speak with Pastor Pete, so I spoke with him. He's gonna speak to his folks at the church. Jennifer Phillips is on waiting a return call on Shirley, and I've done up with the town.
Terrific. Thank you, Neil.
Oh, no, it was more about the right
Oh,
of way.
and the
going up
butters.
to the church. Because if we make parking there, we're gonna increase traffic up there. affects the church, so. I
Yep.
just wanted to talk
It's
about
fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fine.
Well,
Absolutely.
The upside is they would be able to use spots. So.
So with those additions, the three that Neil mentioned, what we're going to have at our next meeting is a packet of parking ordinances, which we are then going to schedule for a public hearing. Does that timeline sound correct to everybody?
Yeah, and just note that it's not everything because we figured just
Right.
size
Yeah,
wise, let's get through the
absolutely.
most
Yeah.
effective ones and
Yep.
then we can.
That's great. Terrific. Thank you guys for all your work on that. I really appreciate it. So what about, oh, I'm sorry, David.
I thought of another item with regard to parking, but not only was after the last time it was discussed publicly. And I had the best of intentions to write Neil an email, but I never get to it. I apologize. So my observation over time, and it continues, is that people have a lot of bad habits at parking at the front parking, angular parking at the library. And people are trying to fit large trucks now, which is anything large, a Toyota Tacoma and bigger, or even smaller. And they, at the angular parking, they stick out into the street. And in the summertime, especially when the cone is out there and you've got all the pedestrian and cars, it's a hazard. But it's also a hazard in the wintertime because people do it. And if you pass in the Littlefield gas truck, for example, going the other way, obviously accidents happen. So it may be time to eliminate some of those angular parking spots, especially on the corners, and/or develop the appropriate parking enforcement for people who don't respect where the actual street is in their parking. It's a mix of inadequate room on the angles and carelessness in the rest of the area. So I just offer that for your action or consideration.
Yeah, so the library parking is on the list. It's not in this iteration, but on the next group, we'll make sure that's addressed as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
And that should get a little better out back at least, which will help out front. Is everything out there? I haven't been to the library lately. The construction equipment that's really been boggling everything up. The other thing, and this kind of speaks to your remark about the library. I went in the block on grocery today and vehicles, and we say this, vehicles have just gotten, I had trouble, it was actually a little unsettling going down the middle aisle because the vehicles are so big. Maybe I just hit it at the wrong time when the big cars were there, but then of course I park and I'm 4 feet away from the curb stop. And then I got out and I think if everybody parked like if everybody in this town could park, we'd have more parking space. Except I realized that even being 4 feet away from the curb stop, I was still not as far out as the other big vehicles were. So I have no solution to that. I am just making a comment.
Bill?
It's real.
Yeah, Eugene, Oregon, probably 30 years ago, had parked, all their parking lots had different size cars, had to be in different spaces.
Bill?
Thank you. It's a little bit of a stretch what we are, but just so for informational purposes, the signs that we work with the council for the senior parking.
Yes.
They'll be coming down for the summer because it's seasonal. So if people
Yep.
see that, I think it was a success. to some
I think
degree.
so, yeah.
And hopefully we'll be able to do it next year, but with the high speed coming out from London, that space will be there.
Will you please pass along our thanks? Because yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And by the way, people heard you were towing. So
I know, that's consistent with the theory. All you need to do is tow one car. I know, exactly.
You got to do a little bit better than photocopying a sign that you
was
stole
down there
from
that
somewhere else, though.
So just so that to continue the so we're gonna have a ordinance packet. And we're gonna have, do we need an STC packet, or is there consensus around what permissions we need to ask or changes? Great. Do you need anything from us on that, I guess? is
No,
the
I think
question.
what we'll do is get through the ordinance piece and then we'll at the same time submit
that-
stuff to
Okay,
SDC.
great. I
and
just
let
want to
them
make
know.
sure that we're,
Because most of their stuff is correction of word,
Sure.
roads that
Great.
were incorrect. So I think
great,
those folks.
great. Wonderful. Are there any further comments about this stuff? Other than terrific, thank you. We will move on then. What's that? Yes, to number 11. Update discussing. Yes?
I'll say the signs are good on top signs about the bikes.
Oh, good.
I mean, they went up quick and Marion and White or whatever.
Fantastic. Sven, update, discuss and act on 2023 visitor communication test.
So, as everybody knows, Molly, Marion, and I, were part of the idea of signage and messaging, and Molly, Marion, about signage, this is about the test of a, messaging campaign. As we talked about a couple meetings ago, an RFP went out, Marion, an RFP went out, to agencies about running there were two tests. One was a digital advertising test that in essence would be triggered by people who have been searching to come to Long Island. And if they are searching, then we would post something like, hey, there's things up in Long Island, here's the things you should know. And a very proper and positive tone, let them know about but all the in a good way. The other test that was in the RFP was in essence a post sharing test, a la chamber, for example, or the security council or whoever. If we were to generate posts and then it is shared out to folks until we can build up our Facebook community, what is the effect? And Marianne, you want to talk about all the responses?
Yeah, so we did receive 2 responses. Both companies appear to have extensive experience in this particular area. One currently works with the interstate navigation. The other one works with the town here with the website. The pricing was pretty compatible. One was slightly lower than the other. So it's really just where the council wants to go with this after this point.
As you may recall, the plan was to go out to the community and see if the community will support it from a financial point of view. I have now talked to a number of businesses that are very interested in helping out and trying to run this test. The goal of this is to make it, I'm sorry, I didn't have my speaker on. The goal of this is to ensure that we are well aligned with what Tourism Council is doing, what the Chamber is doing, and what we are doing, or anybody else, so that we aren't contradicting or conflicting. And I'm not really concerned about the conflict, but I want to make sure that we're all sharing, or at least we are sharing, all the information we can with all the other bodies. And the RFPs the proposals back did have the cost of it were about 20,000. And they did have about testing, the media, the creative, as well as the analytics and the presentation to the council and the community as to the results and what they would recommend for the future. So the real question tonight is to get your input and thoughts on whether we want to proceed with this. We now have official costs. We would obviously want to go ahead and start to engage. But do you want to proceed with this?
number one. And then if we do, I will start to talk to businesses and others about raising funds from interstate and from all kinds of businesses to be able to support the messaging campaign. So that's sort of the goal of tonight, is getting everybody's pulse. It's not, there's no act, I don't believe, on the agenda. So it's really more of just, are we all comfortable in moving this?
How long is the test?
It's a 3-month test. It's planned for middle of June, at least in the RFP, it was middle of June, I believe, to middle of September.
And 20,000 included all of
Everything.
all of it.
Yeah, one was 20, I believe, Marianne, and one was 23. And we haven't gone and talked to them about whether they're actually even closer, because one had 1,000, but they're close.
And what happens if you don't get any dollars? Are we prepared to pay for the whole thing?
Marianne, do you want to chime in?
We didn't budget funds for this, and I would hesitate. Let's put it this way, we didn't budget any funds specifically for this. We can have a further discussion on that at this point.
Right. So, I mean, I think if the fundraising doesn't work and the community response is moot, then that says everything, right? I mean, I think and I've had this discussion with a lot of people. And at times it has been a bit of maybe a debate. I think one of the roles of the town is to communicate the basics of our regulations with people visiting, and do it in a positive way and a good way and a healthy way. I think the Tourism Council has done an amazing job with it. And I think the chamber is trying to do some things with it, and now especially with their app. So I think that it is part of the responsibility of the town to let people know. The obvious one is open containers, but let people know what the rules are. And historically, people have often come to this island saying it's a party town. There's no rules. It's a playpen. It's all kinds of things. And I think we need to start to tighten that down in an official capacity. So this is, in all respect to everybody else, this is the town, I think, doing what they should be doing. So I may be alone in this, or this.
And it's the idea that you mentioned Facebook. So we'll do a trial without a Facebook page, and they'll manage it, and then we'll have a Facebook page if it's a success. Is that the long term?
No, I don't think this is, I believe Marianne's working on a Facebook page anyway. So that is one subject that I believe, Marianne, I don't mean to speak for you. She's working on that anyway. The idea here is more about share, like what's the most efficient way for us to do something like this? Is it share out, or is it paid digital advertising? And really, paid digital advertising sounds very elaborate and crazy. It is, in essence, when somebody clicks on, I'll just use Interstate again, when they click on, what can I learn more about Block Island? Then the next time they click, they may have that little banner ad saying, you're going to come into Block Island? Here's, blah, blah, blah. So.
Yeah, the only concern I get with Facebook, and I think it's the right direction, is that's a lot of management. You have to have the whole idea of social media is the engagement. So someone's got to be responding. They got to be looking at inappropriate comments. And so it's just, that's a head count or half a head count.
My intentions with Facebook is I was waiting for this to get done. I have an RFP to put out with it and to have someone manage it, because you're absolutely right. It's a human capacity, and you have to have someone who spends a lot of time on that and working with that stuff.
And in this test, the agencies both will do that. They will manage the sharing, and if there's something that needs to be done, part of their response was that they would account for that.
Yeah, the only thing about Facebook is there are so many Block Island Facebook pages right now. And I don't know how you gain traction with another one. Instead of just piggybacking on what's there.
So just to be clear, I don't want to get lost in this. This proposal is not about Facebook. This proposal is exactly what you just said, Martha. Create a post that we then try and get to those pages that they would share out to their communities. So that in theory, they would go to their communities and hopefully we would have a broader reach. That's the idea. In a very simple way.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Here's my take on this is, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. So we have the Tourism Council that has a robust program. This is another, and I think fundamentally, for lack of a better description, the good behavior aspect runs through their communications, I think, more consistently than anyone's. So I would like to see this worked on as tools that we're not currently using, instead of in other words, let's add arrows to the quiver rather than keep using the same arrows. That's sort of the key to me. If we're gonna, and it's I guess at the end of the day, the theoretic, hopefully it's gonna not be our money, but I just don't want to, and I don't think I'm unique in this. I think this is where you are too, Sven. But I don't want to be running our wheels in the same tracks that are that have already been dug. And I think close alignment with the Tourism Council on this is important, and I know you've been working on that. It's going to be interesting to see what the level of interest is. Sure you don't want to speak on this? Is it on this communications piece?
Yes, regarding
Great.
The language in the letter that was sent to everyone who was considered a liquor board. It's just mainly, the language says a person acted in a non-prudent manner.
In a what manner?
Unprudent, like not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you.
in regards to the
Will you do
patient.
me a favor and just say your name for the record?
My name is Grayson.
Yep.
I'm a local. I've been here since 2010. I
Yep.
went to school here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm one of them. Moving forward, I just wanted to state that there was a vessel that sank, that essentially the words that are coming back, that it's mine and it's not.
Oh,
I
okay.
have like a documentation saying that, so I just wanted to I don't know, have the opportunity to, bring that forward.
To make
because
clear for the record that it wasn't your boat.
it's not my, and there's, the guy will speak up. He is back on the island and we'll talk about that and bring forth any paperwork necessary, but
Okay.
for my character's sake.
I appreciate that.
um,
Absolutely.
Or, we can also lift the boat. I have the means to do that. As far as like lowering the cost of because I was under the impression that someone has to pay for it, so.
That'd
I
be
can
good.
Definitely lift it.
Yeah.
As far as getting rid of it. I mean, it was never my boat. And that,
Whose was it?
the guy's name is, have it here. It's Garrett. He's it used to be, all right, so originally that boat was sold to me from Troy. It washed up on the beach apparently 3 years ago, just before COVID, in Old Harbor. which
Right.
was one
I
of the,
remember. Yeah.
So he sold it to me without paperwork. I was under the impression that the harbor master is able to provide paperwork as a derelict vessel and essentially get a salvage title, which I provided my paperwork that I had, which was just the whole ID number, whatever I could find, previous owner, whatever. Therefore, I bought another boat that's registered and insured. Moving forward, the harbor master texted me at 4 a.m. saying she doesn't want, she's trying to push for federal banning of my vessel in the harbor of Safe Refuge, New Harbor, essentially. So,
Okay. Thank you, Grayson. This is very helpful.
statement, as far as helping get it up and out of there, I can float it. I have to float
Okay.
bags that will lift 20,000 pounds each. The boat is like 19,000 pounds, so 40,000 pounds is not a problem.
Okay.
At one PSI. Yeah, just want to make that.
Great.
as far
Thank
as
you.
the language.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Is there any further discussion on this? Visitor communication testing, anything else from us? John? Mary Ann? Molly? Raise the dough. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, man. Mary Ann, would you? Yes, we're on a different. Yes. Show us the money. That's how rumors start. It was, yes. All right. And now for something completely different, and equally positive. How about an update on the state police?
Just so everyone knows, I think I told most of the council members this, that the state police will be returning this year. Their technology folks have already been here to upload the necessary software because they do have party cams that they are required to wear. And the chief is working with Major Allen with the state police as to timing and dates and when they begin and things of that nature. So.
If, I know we've talked about this, but it strikes me that with a new chief with this, what I would describe, given that there was nothing but cooperation between the town and the state, it strikes me that at some point we ought to talk about that more publicly than in a council meeting, because I think it's all very positive and directional. So, perhaps some recommendations around that, from you and the chief, I think would be helpful, because I think we were appropriately ready to be, we're appropriately concerned about what happened last year. And we're, girded for argument, but, and this year is a totally different environment. And I think you have to say thank you, in my opinion. So thank you. Discuss and act on board, commission, and committees. A number of weeks ago, dare I say 2 months ago, we were doing appointments to the Harbors Committee, and were told that Harbors is having a hard time reaching a quorum, and that, by the way, is perhaps not unique to Harbors. And were to contemplate the addition of an alternate to that board. As I've said, Martha and I think, are the two zoning nerds here. We've both served. The alternate position on that board is, what's that? Please feel free if you'd like to interrupt me. I'd be happy to.
No, I thought you said we both been alternates. They threw me in the deep end of the pool.
Right, but
We need alternates very much. I
yes,
complete agreement with.
so I think adding an alternate, and it as I was doing the research on this, I couldn't find a place where we even have the number of people in Harbors. I think we've sort of done it by tradition. So I think we should add an alternate to that board and to any other board that wants one. That's my opinion. So this, of course, begs the question whether we should codify how many members actually on the Harbors Committee. I mean, am I wrong about that, Millie? Because I couldn't find it anywhere. So is that best dealt with presumably via ordinance? There's a section of our ordinance that actually refers to a Harbors Committee, but doesn't say anything about the appointments of the Harbors Committee. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go, no,
We do
please.
I mean, we have that memorialized in, in our programming and
Right,
on board,
yes.
also in town council minutes or so
Yes.
therefore town council policy.
Yeah.
Whether it would be cumbersome to make it into an ordinance in the future may or may not be an issue.
Okay.
Then why don't we change the ordinance to say the members to be reviewed and appointed by the council annually or something like that? Is that giving us way too much freedom? Not to exceed a certain number.
So the way the ordinance looks to me, and Nick, I don't know whether you've looked at it. I don't think anybody's asked you to, but the way the ordinance looks to me is it says there shall be a Harbors Committee, essentially. Which I suppose is ultimate flexibility, right? But not anything about, whatever, 5 members or anything along those lines, or an alternate. And if Marion, by the way, I'm saying this, if you find it, please, I couldn't, the fact that I couldn't find it doesn't mean it's not there, I guess is my point, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, Keith, I couldn't find it either. I settled on the fact that it's an advisory committee for the council. So you have a fair amount of flexibility with that.
So we can in fact do anything, we can in fact appoint however many people we want.
You're living in the gray area as always, within reason, I would say.
This year has made it grayer.
Well, so there's let's sort of get to concrete. Would it be in order if, say, I were to make a motion to add an alternate member to the Harbors Committee and that were seconded and passed, would that suffice? Or would it be wiser to have an ordinance that actually says, here's what the Harbors Committee is? That's the fundamental question. I think ultimately we probably have a consensus that we want to add an alternate, but I'm really talking more sort of process and long-term wisdom and sustainability along what the Harbors Committee looks like.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer. As I've preached, transparency is always a good thing, in my opinion. So if you did codify it, I don't see anything wrong with that, because it puts the world on notice as to what exactly that committee is. But with it being an advisory committee, all of its function is to advise the council. There's no right or wrong answer with what you do with the alternate position.
That's a good point.
But it does feel better to me if your second comment of how many are there and there's an alternate. I mean, just sort of not having that, how many are there seems a little.
One of whom shall be an alternate.
I mean, I'm siding with Keith on
You
let's
could have-
have definitions.
You could have an ordinance says that there are 5 members and an alternate, right? Nick or Marion, could we just draft that for consideration? Does
Yeah,
that
we
make
can
sense?
get something. I guess what you're right. I couldn't find anything either.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I kept thinking, I continue to think I must be wrong. Great, thank you.
Can I
Go
ask
ahead,
you
Sven.
Quick question, though. I saw in the
You can
next
find that,
legislation on item B, where Conservation Commission
Yes.
has quorum issues, one alternate would help. Do we want to?
So
separate?
that
I'm sorry.
that was the next thing that I was going to.
Okay,
get to.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's B. We were on A.
I know. But it was the same subject. That was kind of.
Yeah,
rolling.
well, it's a
But
little
that
bit,
is state
it's a little bit, it's a little bit different because this one, I must admit, I was reading, Jen Brady's response, I think to Laurel. And I remembered that she is right. She actually asked us to ask for legislation last year and I forgot. Yeah, she did. It may have been 2 years ago. It may be the timing. Was it last year? And I just, yeah, I think it was toward the end of the session. I forgot. So, I don't have any problem adding alternates. I can tell you, Martha got thrown into the deep end. I started as an alternate on zoning. I actually don't think there was a file that I didn't vote on because, you know, zoning touches everybody somehow, whether you're in a butter or you're a realtor who sold the property or you're a builder who's working on the property. You know, it's not easy in a town of this size. I don't know whether they've had quorum issues, but I don't see any harm in talking to Rick and Tina and Alana if there is some kind of a piece of master municipal legislation that happens every year, which I assume there is, perhaps.
Yeah, with zoning ordinance, what's attached here is sample legislation that other communities that
Yeah.
have the 3 alternates, and guess what? They're all small communities.
Yeah, yeah.
So, that's,
So do you need anything from us or can? you
no,
just
what we'll
ask
do is
Rick
we'll
if he
put
can
this
do
on the
it?
radar of Rick's.
Great,
for
wonderful.
Next year, because
Wonderful.
clearly at this time of the year, we're not going to get any traction.
C is appointing 2 town representatives to the Sanpete Meadow Property Management Committee for a 1-year term. Who's on it now?
I'm on it. And it was Mark.
It was Mark,
Neil was appointed.
Neil. Oh, in that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Neil was supposed to be smart. But then so, you mind if I speak now?
Oh, it's okay.
I know. Bear with me. So just in looking at this, this was created last year I guess at this time, and given a 1-year term. I was hoping that if you were going to be keeping this going in perpetuity, if you could rearrange the term limit to end in December, so that it can then fall in line with the rest of the appointments. It's hard to have these, to track the one-off
That
sometimes.
makes a lot of sense.
Thank
to
you.
me.
And just for clarification purposes, this is a lot like Hodge. Neil's like, what am I
Well,
on?
I want to say, sorry, I'm completely missed the boat. I was appointed to some committee. I don't even
Yes,
know.
you missed all the meetings so
I
far.
have not been to any meetings, so,
You didn't attend.
yeah.
You got signed up for a lot of
Maybe
stuff.
I was drinking that night or something, but what am I on?
It's so Sanpete Meadow is the land,
That's really.
is the land, right? And much like Hodge, the idea is that all of the parties meet once a year to talk about whether it's mowing or what are the policies. None of them have voting. For example, you and I don't have voting capable on that. We are to bring it back to the council. Barbara and whoever else it is on the land trust would bring it back to the land trust. But at least, and it's an opportunity to get some discussions going and some things done.
So would it be helpful, Millie, if we were to make a motion to make the 2 town representatives' terms coincident with the biennial election, basically? Is that what you're asking us for?
I just think we get 1-year.
1-year terms.
Expiring December 2020. In this case, December 2023, so it'll be a short.
Perfect.
Okay.
Unless you want to create a longer term.
Well, I think at least now there's actually, given that that there's a lot of discussion going on around this harbors facility that'll be on that land, some continuity makes some sense, so maybe 1 year, I mean, maybe it ought to be, as I said, coincident with, when we convene at our first meeting and then, at our next meeting, do all of those appointments. Maybe they should be for 2 years then. Does that, I mean,
And it'd be nice to.
I don't have strong
But
feelings.
it would be
about
good to
it.
stagger them.
Yeah, that's true.
Kick off the stagger.
So I think I understand what
Yeah.
Millie's saying, because I remember when we started the police advisory we had to have these staggered,
Mhm.
right? So you're asking, could one of these be like a 6-month term and the other one be an 18-month term right now? Is that what you're asking?
I leave it up to you. I mean,
No, it doesn't make any sense. It has to end at the same time that the constitution.
Millie
She's
wants,
trying to align calendars.
Millie wants them to be on cycle, basically, right?
No, I understand that, but
Is
she
that
also
right?
wants them ending in December,
I'm sorry,
not,
I was.
Yeah,
clarifying.
sorry.
Yeah. Is that, so Millie, if you were to wave a magic wand. Exactly.
Oh. Whoa.
There might be days I agree. There might be days I agree. If solely for these purposes, you were given a magic wand, what would you like us to do?
I don't have an opinion I honestly don't have an opinion on it, except for that I'd like it to fall into the cycle of the December appointment. You have a number of appointments in December that you do every year.
Okay.
You also have other terms that, that stagger. To
Can
me,
I-
I don't have
Can I make a
thought-
motion that the terms of the current appointees, Sven Reesum and Neil Murphy, conclude in December of 2023?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. I oppose no. Ayes have it. See? Now on that other thing. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm trying, brother. Water District Commission members and Sewer Commission members. First one is to accept Kathy Zabo's resignation. Can we do a letter out to her thanking her, please? Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that and so much more. The other two matters are the appointment of Diane Haight as a full member, fulfilling the unexpired term of Kathy Zabo, which will expire April 30th, 2024. And then appoint Lars Trodson as a full member with a term expiring in 2023. Is there any discussion of this?
Oh, that's not, yeah, that's.
Should be, that's a typo. Thank you. That's- Exactly. 2028. All right, I would make a motion to appoint Diane Haight as a full member fulfilling the unexpired term of Kathy Zabo, term expiring April 30th, 2024. Is there discussion of Diane's appointment? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I would, so this would expire in 2028? Is this done statutorily or by ordinance?
It's the law.
And I don't know, I honestly don't know if it's, the origin of that right now.
Okay, I would, all right, so that strikes me as a long time. If we could, and I mean no disrespect to Lars or to either of the commissions, but I'd like to see what that rule is before we act on Lars's appointment. In addition, we have vacancies on Commission on Motor Vehicles for Hire, 1, 2 alternates for the Water District Commission, and 2 alternates for the Sewer District Commission. As people saw at the financial town meeting last night, these are vital roles that deal with genuinely significant issues for the town. Our current governance structure is such that they're even more vital. And I would really ask anybody who's interested in really the long-term environmental health of the community to step up to the plate for those. That said,
Can I
Yes,
just clarify
please.
something before we end this? sorry to prolong, but going back to the harbors issue, we didn't exactly settle C, but I'm wondering, I think when are we putting this all off to?
We're just putting it off until we actually have language to act upon.
Okay.
And then I was thinking,
But no
we would
particular date.
actually have something in front of everybody.
Okay.
Instead of saying, what about this, what about that? We can actually say, how would you change this language to accommodate that, if that's our sense?
Sure. But we didn't pick a date.
I said next meeting.
Next meeting. Okay, thanks. Next
It's-
meeting is the 17th. Is that right?
Hooray, I'm back from vacation.
Keith, on,
Yes.
on boards, commissions, committees, we had talked about setting a meeting up with the police advisory
Yes,
commission.
a work
And I'm just,
session.
a work session, and I just don't want that to
Thank you.
get too
Yeah,
much
no,
longer.
thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys for. There you go.